Alright y'all, so today we're going to be trying a new recipe for fried green tomatoes, except we're going to be using red tomatoes because they don't have green tomatoes at the store yet because it's June. Alright, let's go. So we've got all of our ingredients. We've got 4 tomatoes, dried parsley, paprika, cayenne pepper, some salt, flour, cornmeal, buttermilk, and oil. Right, it's time to slice the tomatoes. You want to slice them a little bit thicker just so that they stay firm whenever you fry them. Now, because they didn't have green tomatoes, you want to get Roma tomatoes. Those are the ones that are a little bit different shaped because those stay more firm than the bigger ones. So keep that in mind, especially if you're making these out of season like I am today. Now, what inspired me to make this in the beginning of June for the first full meal in my new apartment? Well, I'm a huge fan of the movie Fried Green Tomatoes. And so I was like, well, I have always wanted to make them myself. I had them back at my dad's house in East Texas, and they were delicious. I didn't get the same recipe. I wanted to try something a little bit different, and I'm going to keep writing it down and perfecting it myself. But I think this is a pretty good start. I can't wait till green tomatoes are in season. Now, they aren't different. They're just not ripe, but the best time to get those is going to be later into the summer months. And since we're still at the beginning of summer, I mean, this is ending the first week of meteorological summer, we have a little bit more time until green tomatoes are fully in. So now that all of our tomatoes are cut, we're going to get ready to season them just with some salt and pepper. Now, I hate cooking in a messy kitchen, so I'm going to be transferring all the tomato slices over into this pan to help kind of get all of the salt and pepper on there evenly without getting it all over the counter. So I'm going to take the black pepper and just kind of put it all on here. You don't want to get too much, but you also don't want them to not have any flavor. Pepper is one of my favorites too. And then with the salt, I'm using pink salt, but you can use pretty much whatever. Now, because they are red tomatoes, they're going to be a little bit sweeter than if we were to use green tomatoes. So I would suggest maybe a little bit more salt than you might normally do. Again, not using a whole lot, but enough to kind of soak in and give it a good texture on the outside. This is going to help everything else. All right, go ahead and flip them all around. I love the smell of black pepper. It is the best, especially when you get it on a tenderloin or something like that. Black peppercorn's perfect. All right, I'll put a little bit more black pepper on these sides, and then we're going to continue and do the rest of the tomato slices the same. I'm going to put them back on the cutting board for now that they've been seasoned. Yeah, this is my first time to kind of do them this way, but I wanted to try something. Figured it would be fun. So this one's a little bit too small to use. Looks like I can fit all of them in here now. Some of the ones that are a little bit thicker or a little bit more thin I'm not going to use because I don't think they're going to fry very well. They might be a little bit too soggy or too firm. Put your salt on there. Put the rest of your pepper. You're not using a ton, but you're using enough to be able to see it so that you can taste it. All right, now let's flip them over. Get some on the other side as well. Staying nice and clean in here today. I don't want to have to clean up on a Sunday evening. I want to be able to relax and enjoy these and watch a movie or something. So now we're going to combine our flour, a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of pepper into a shallow bowl. Mix it around so that we can get ready to start dipping these suckers. In another bowl, we're gonna take our cornmeal, our paprika, our cayenne pepper, as well as our dried parsley, and maybe throw in a little bit more pepper and some salt in there as well. Let's go ahead and do that. So we're gonna do a teaspoon of the dried parsley. Make it a little bit of a heaping teaspoon there. And then we're going to take a teaspoon of the paprika. And we aren't gonna quite do a teaspoon of cayenne. That'd be a little bit too spicy for me, I think, but we will do a half a teaspoon of that. We're gonna throw it all in here into this bowl with our cornmeal. And for some flavor, we'll add some salt and pepper. Not a whole lot because we've got some in our other mixtures as well. There we go. We'll go ahead and stir this all up. I always like to use my measuring spoons to stir because that's one less dish you have to do at the end of the day. Just get this all stirred around. Make sure everything's mixed in well because this is what we're going to be dipping our tomatoes in last before we put them on the stove and fry them on up. I'm going to go ahead and pour my buttermilk in a bowl because once we get the tomatoes in the flour mixture, we're going to dip them into the buttermilk and then we're going to dip them into the cornmeal mix before we throw them on the stove. So we're going to take our tomato slices and one by one we're going to drop them in here into our flour mixture. Make sure they're well coated and got them all soaked in. Then we're going to take them, put them in our buttermilk. Just dip them each side, just like that. I like to do it a couple times to make sure that you get everything. And then we're going to dip them into our corn mixture here. This is the best part. This is what fries and gets real crispy, so you want to make sure that there's plenty on there. Make sure it doesn't stick to your fingers or anything and rub off. And then we're going to plop them down onto a little pan here and let them soak in for about 10 to 15 minutes before we go ahead and fry them on up. Now, I loved watching cooking shows when I was little. I'd always watch them with my grandma. And by the time I was 2, even before I was 2, I could crack an egg with one hand. I had a little stool that I'd bring and I'd roll it up to the counter and I'd tell my grandma, who I called Gaga, I said, Gaga, cook. I wanted to cook. So I'd roll that up there and get up and we'd bake and cook and make all sorts of good food. Now, the first restaurant I ever worked at was downtown. It was my first job, and this was in the summer of 2020. So you can imagine how everything was going around then. And I got the job. I went up there, and I'd been working there for a while. It was in downtown Mount Vernon, Texas. The restaurant was called Sweet Home Texas. They sold hot dogs and sandwiches and different soups and snow cones and desserts. It's delicious. Well, one day we had buttermilk, and I had never heard of it before, and I thought, well, surely it's going to be good. It has butter in it, doesn't it? And so the owners told me, yeah, you should try it. Here, let me pour you some. And they were smiling, and I thought, well, maybe I don't know. They're up to something, right? They're up to something. And I figured, well, I'll try it. Mine as well. I took a big old swig, the biggest swig I've ever taken, and I about spit it up all over the counter. I held it in. I got to the back sink and was able to spit it up there, but it was not quite what I had been told it would be. So now we want to put our canola oil in the pan. Get a little bit deeper pan just so that I don't have to worry about anything spilling out or anything like that. You want to make sure that you have enough to dip them in for them to get fully soaked so that they can fry nice and good and then start floating when they're done. So I'm going to use the wooden spoon method to see if the oil is at the right temperature. You're going to put it right in the middle and wait to see if bubbles start to form. Now, if a lot form and it starts popping, then that's going to be too hot. But looks like we are perfect. Got a few bubbles popping up. Let's go ahead and get these guys in. Now, I'm going to use some forks to drop them in there because I don't want to burn. There we go. Listen to that. That sounds beautiful. That nice sizzle, not too hot. I went ahead and turned it down a little bit because it's going to continue to heat up. There we go. Listen to that. Oh boy, that looks good. Then we'll flip them here in a second just to make sure that they both get completely soaked. You can kind of see how a couple of them, or almost all of them now, are kind of bouncing around, and eventually they'll start to float and move around, and that's when you know that they are done. And you might need to add a little bit more oil as you go, because it's going to soak up into some of these tomatoes. Just make sure that it covers everything here whenever you put them in. And that should be good. Now when I fry stuff, I don't have my apron on me right now. I usually do. But if you don't, you want to make sure that you get a shirt that you don't mind maybe getting a little bit of oil and grease on it, because this stuff is popping a lot. I'm sure you can hear it. Now I don't think I can wait any longer. Let's go ahead and try one of these out. I mean, would you look at that? That is just perfect, golden brown, crispy all around. Let's dip it in some ranch and taste it. That is very good. It's got a good flavor. The ranch is perfect with it. Enjoy. Make sure to follow and subscribe for more content, and send me recommendations. What should I cook next, or what should I do?